Hello, folks. Welcome back to Chris Wyatt Africa. This is Chris in central Pennsylvania. What you see behind me is Church Square in Pretoria, where today the African National Congress launched its election manifesto for the 2021 municipal elections that they actively sought to have delayed in violation of South Africa's constitution, colluding with the Independent Electoral Commission to get the Constitutional Court to prevent these elections from taking place this year. Why? Because according to former Deputy Chief Justice Moseneke, who did a bizarre investigation on behalf of the Independent Electoral Commission, he determined it wasn't safe for South Africa to hold free and fair elections in 2021. This, despite the fact that over 115 governments from around the world have held elections successfully. Some countries have held multiple elections, like Niger, a country racked by internal violence, Islamofascist terrorism, and conflict. Yet, despite that, they held two elections. And also saw Somaliland, a country barely recognized by most of the world, hold an election. The Central African Republic, a failed country, held an election. Namibia held an election November last year in Africa, and the ruling party got shellacked. And that's probably what the ANC is scared of, not free and fair elections. And then in Zambia, we just saw the ruling party get unseated and a five-time contender for presidency, Hichilema, finally get elected in a free and fair election. But South Africa said you can't have a free and fair election, that the fourth wave was inbound, that was all going to be a disaster. Of course, 2 weeks ago, President Cyril Ramaphosa, after the Constitutional Court told the government that they must hold the elections by November 1st, after they were forced to do that, then suddenly the lockdown restrictions at level 3 adjusted in South Africa were lowered to level 2 adjusted. And despite the Constitutional Court telling ANC's National Coronavirus Command Council, that would be a minister of traditional affairs and cooperative governance, and Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, that she must get rid of all restrictions on political assembly and allow people to gather. When Ramaphosa lowered the lockdown restrictions to the now level 2 adjusted, which is pretty much anything he wants to make it to be, some things from level 2 and whatever they want to keep from whatever levels to be punitive to punish South Africa's restaurant, hospitality, and tourism industry, in an effort to destroy and remake the economy. They set it at 500. Now that's in contempt of court, in my view. They disregarded the Concourt's ruling, whatever the case is. But that'll come back into play here shortly. Today, the ANC launched its manifesto in Tshwane, the capital of South Africa, the political capital, the home of Pretoria, which was the name for the whole city until the ANC obliterated that name in its endless campaign against racial minorities. Well, in Tshwane, this is what the ANC had to say about their election manifesto today. Cyril Ramaphosa spoke for just under an hour, often stumbling through his iPad speech that was prepared, confusing, mispronouncing words. And then when he did go off script, he repeated ANC fairy tales about promises that will never be fulfilled. This on day 550 of the National Coronavirus Command Council's lockdown measures that have destroyed the hospitality, restaurant, and tourism industries, killed 3 million jobs, criminalized lawful behavior, and led to even greater ANC theft of state resources and tax dollars, and the disappearance of over $5.6 billion in loans from the International Monetary Fund, the African Development Bank, and the New Development Bank, or the BRICS Bank. Plus all the tax revenue, PPE scandals left and right, the Minister of Health relieved, fired for his role in corruption. The Director General of the Ministry of Health now also being set aside, suspended for his role. The former Secretary General of the party suspended for his role in a 251 million rand asbestos tender contract corruption that took place when he was the premier of the Free State. And the list goes on and on and on. The one thing that doesn't change is these corrupt members of the ANC who are suspended continue to receive a salary while they're suspended. But day 550 of what was supposed to be 21-day lockdown. Last year, President Ramaphosa lied to South Africans. He told them that you must accept these lockdown measures, stay in your homes, don't go anywhere, because this is the most dangerous health situation in over a century. And we need to get hospital beds ready in intensive care units. But 550 days later, not only are we well past day 22, which is about 530 days or 29 days different from what this guy said, there are less intensive care beds available in South Africa, courtesy of the massive fire at the Charlotte Maxeke Hospital in Gauteng, and now a fire at a hospital in Northwest. Fewer beds are around. Total scam lockdown. Unbelievable. And what has it done? Has it prevented South Africans from dying? Has it prevented the spread? No. In fact, South Africa's generated new variants of the virus because the lockdown measures were not done, except targeting ethnic minorities for the most part. Now, for his part, for this municipal election, Cyril Ramaphosa claims that Tshwane, the capital, is in disarray. Rubbish isn't collected. Infrastructure is falling apart. And he blames the opposition party coalition for what they inherited and have not yet fixed, despite 21 years of the ANC's neglect. It's almost comical to listen to this. He's taking a page from the Democratic Alliance, who constantly attacks the ANC for their service failure deliveries and trying to convince people in Tshwane that the ANC is not responsible for the disaster that the coalition, which is fractious and has fallen apart a couple of times, is responsible for fixing. He also accuses the opposition of harassment and intimidation of Black, colored, and Indians in Tshwane. There aren't a lot of Indians in Tshwane, and there are very few coloreds there. There are plenty of Black folks and lots of white folks. In an obvious race hustling narrative, this is what the ANC does. This is what they know: race hustling, racial bifurcation in society, dividing white South Africans from Black, colored, and Indians. Well, don't fall for it. Don't fall for the ANC's tired old racist narrative. Black, white, colored, and Indian South Africans can live perfectly fine in harmony, and do in much of the country. Then he talks about, you must give us back Tshwane so we can continue the societal and economic transformation and get it back on track. What exactly is he talking about there? He's talking about redistribution, socialist, communist, garbage, gobbledygook of stealing from those who achieve, those who create jobs, those who invest in the economy, and handing it off to those who've become serfs under the ANC. Then he goes back to the typical tired ANC line that makes no sense. We'll give you a non-sexist, non-racial, prosperous South Africa. Well, it's a very sexist South Africa. You constantly bring up gender and do nothing about improving gender relations, and you ignore gender-based violence. And now you throw femicide in because someone introduced the term to you, as if you'd never heard of it before. You're a very sexist party, and you pretend that, oh, we're so equal because we have so many female members of parliament. Well, how many of them are qualified? For that matter, how many ANC members of parliament are qualified to even be in their job? Non-racial, this from the party that put in place a tourism relief fund based in part from private donations and also from government revenue, and then denied it to people who are minorities to criminally, illegally violate the Constitution, which is what they did. The tourism minister, Nkabani, put in an unconstitutional program and distribute all the money to Black South Africans, ignoring other South Africans in the tourism sector. How did that help anybody? As tourism businesses, lodges, transportation companies, tourist bureaus fell and collapsed in this mess. He talks of islands of privilege in an ocean of despair, a clear mark talking about Pretoria, which has some very leafy suburbs, but those leafy suburbs are not simply there because there's wealthy or upper middle income South Africans. He conveniently forgets to mention because Pretoria is the headquarters of many corporations, and their well-paid employees and directors live around there. And more importantly, it's a national capital. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of foreign embassies with thousands of diplomats renting or buying homes in the area, living in leafy suburbs for the security of their members. Yeah, conveniently forgetting that. This racist narrative, islands of privilege in an ocean of despair. This comes from a party that controlled all the metros, save Cape Town, for the last 27 years, well, 21 years until the 2016 municipal elections, in which they lost Johannesburg and they lost Tshwane. Briefly lost Nelson Mandela Bay, but got it back. Now they've lost it again. Yeah, these islands of privilege existed under your government. And there's nothing wrong with an island of privilege. Try lifting the rest of the people up instead of bringing everyone down to serfdom. So what are we going to get here? We're going to get an ANC that comes back into power in Tshwane, Pretoria, if people are stupid enough to vote for this party. And they'll simply steal again like they did before. And why is this? Because people have received a Bantu education. And I agree with Cyril Ramaphosa that a Bantu education is a human rights violation and worse than no education at all, which he said famously a few months ago. The Bantu education, of course, is the ANC, which has lowered standards to a ludicrously low level. Do you know that in South Africa, in order to enter university with your matrix score, you can have two subjects where you get 30%. And you have others where you get 40%. Who in their right mind would hire an engineer who goes to university who got 36 on their math scores and 60 on science? That's insanity. But that is the standard. They lower the standard to the lowest common denominator so that the country is illiterate, cannot think critically, and pushed into serfdom and buy their bullshit. Because that's what this was. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. So the islands of privilege comment, notion of despair, was a clear signal to South Africans in Tshwane and the rest of the country, the ANC intends to steal and redistribute from the very few people who actually contribute to the financial well-being of South Africa, the less than 3 million who actually pay taxes. We're coming for your property. We're coming to take away what you've achieved. Why? Because we can. Now, a comment here, 2 more comments. The comment about the manifesto launch, it was attended by well in excess of 500 people for an outdoor gathering. To that, I have to say, I'm not criticizing any political parties if they have more than 500, because the Constitutional Court's directive to Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma was quite clear to me and any cogent person. Remove restrictions and allow political assembly in the build-up to this election. After November 1st, we got more than 500 people, then I have an issue. But the ANC ignored that and raised the level from 100 people at an outdoor gathering to 500. Tonight, they were clearly in violation of that, as was the EFF with far more people at their manifesto launch this weekend. But I'm not going to criticize. I'm just going to point out the hypocrisy of the ANC. But they're welcome to have 10,000 if they can manage to pay or sucker 10,000 people into showing up. When this thing ended, within 5 minutes of this manifesto ending and Ramaphosa getting off the stage while the party was still going, 3/4 or more of the crowd was gone. That is an indictment on the ANC. Clearly, these people weren't serious about this party. Also, the South African Broadcasting Corporation stream of this had just 1,300 viewers when Ramaphosa was talking. Of those 1,300 viewers, I had on my own program discussing this 75 viewers. So I invited my viewers to go over, take a look at it, and give them a dislike if they disagreed. They had 83 likes, 93 dislikes on that stream when I brought it up. Within several minutes, people got over, they had enough of what they saw, and they gave it dislikes, pushing it up to 137. My tiny little audience. So this is what Cyril Ramaphosa has to say to South Africans. We have failed you time and again. We have not addressed corruption. We have not done anything about it. But trust us, after 27 years of failure, we are going to get it right now in the next month. We promise to prosecute criminals, to have the step-aside rule enforced so that those charged with crimes go removed from government but still receive a paycheck. We will fix it all. And it's the coalition's fault in Tshwane that everything's broken, that the streets are in disarray, that it's a mess. Not our fault for 21 years. No, it's their fault. And he promised the ANC would renew, revitalize, reposition. All I got from Cyril Ramaphosa's nonsense and gobbledygook is the ANC is simply regurgitating, spitting out nonsense, trying to hoodwink people who lack critical thinking skills, people who lack proper education, people who've become serfs, suckling on the teat of the state for that $23, 350 Rand per month SASA grant. How sad and pathetic is that the ANC's party platform and manifesto to its voters in South Africa is we're going to give you homes. We're going to build homes for you. That's not the role of the state. It's the role of the private sector. Your job is to ensure a level playing field and to ensure proper educational standards, not this ridiculous 30 and 40% passing rate to enter university. Well, folks, I've listened to Cyril Ramaphosa present his party's platform or manifesto in the vernacular of South Africa. And all I want to do now is regurgitate nonsense or vomit up the bile that I have building from listening to this lie, one lie after another, distorting the facts. And when he admits that the party's wrong, then lies about how they fixed it. We've recovered billions in state-owned enterprise money that was stolen. Where's it at? Where are the news stories? Where is the public press release from the government for the funds they've recovered? Do you actually think that 36 to 40 million South Africans who are eligible to vote and the 26 million who've actually registered to vote are that stupid? I'll give you 6 million are that stupid, Cyril Ramaphosa, and you can count on those 6 million votes no matter what crimes you commit and no matter how ineffective or inept your party is. But the bottom line is this. What a bunch of nonsense. What a total bunch of nonsense. Folks, if you're not a subscriber to Chris Wyatt Africa, hey, become one. Boom, smash that button right down there and become a subscriber, where you get independent, objective analysis of events across Africa and a special focus on Southern Africa and South Africa in particular. Thank you very much. God bless. And South Africans, go vote, but not for these jackals. Vote for anybody that's not the economic freedom fighters or the ANC, especially if they have a chance of getting an outright majority in Metro. Take care.